Georgia judge strikes down state's abortion ban, allowing care to resume. Fulton County judge issues order that abortions must be regulated as they were before the law took effect in 2022. Nice. On what grounds has this been struck down? Ruling the ban is unconstitutional and blocking it from being enforced. In his 26-page opinion, the Fulton County Superior Judge Robert McBurney issued an order that said abortions must be regulated as if they were... The ban was blocked as long as Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, but went into effect after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe. So why was it struck down, though? It looks like he's striking it on ideological or philosophical grounds, not for procedural reasons. Many women, McBurney wrote, do not even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. For these women, the liberty of privacy means they alone should choose whether they serve as human incubators. The liberty of privacy. Oh, so he's invoking the same defense as Roe v. Wade, just, like, locally. He's basically re-invoking Roe v. Wade, not as like legal precedent, but he's reaffirming the reasoning provided by the Supreme Court when they first invoked it. That's a pretty bold move considering the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This kind of makes it seem like I think this is going to get overturned as well, because he's kind of like, essentially he's making a ruling along debunked reasoning. I mean, a state constitution can differ in its contents from the national one, but also state constitutions aren't necessarily like built on the same precedent as the national constitution. The Supreme Court will smack that down without hesitation? Well, not necessarily. It would depend on whether or not this argument is being made on like national jurisprudence or whether it's being made on like elements of the Georgia state constitution that might not be present in the national constitution. It is okay for laws to differ state by state based on different states' interpretations of their own constitution. And there's nothing in the national law that requires the states to have the same lack of like effectively Roe v. Wade. It's complicated and I'm not a lawyer, but you know, do state laws go to the Supreme Court? They can if they violate the Constitution. But there's no way that this reasoning would violate the Constitution. There's a difference between the Supreme Court saying, we don't think Roe v. Wade is supported by this constitutional interpretation, and the Supreme Court saying, we don't think this state invoking a Roe v. Wade argument is constitutional. It's the difference between what the Supreme Court says the Constitution allows for and implies, and what they say it disallows. So this might actually stick. For these women, the liberty of privacy means that they alone should choose whether they serve as human incubators. Human incubators? This is a woke-ass judge. Sounds like a lefty debating online. For the 5 months leading up to viability, McBurney wrote, it is not for a legislator, a judge, or a commander from The Handmaid's Tale to tell these women what to do with their bodies during this period when the fetus cannot survive outside the womb any more so than society could or should force them to serve as a human tissue bank or give up their kidney for a benefit of another. This is like the damn concert pianist argument, or like the violinist, or whatever it is. It's the violinist argument, you know? In a footnote, McBurney added, there is an uncomfortable and usually unspoken subtext of involuntary servitude swirling around this debate, symbolically illustrated by the composition of the legal teams in this case. It is generally men who promote and defend laws like the Life Act, the effect of which is to require only women, wow, not woke, what about trans men? And given the socioeconomic and demographic evidence presented at trial, primarily poor women, which means that in Georgia, primarily black and brown women, to engage in compulsory labor, i.e. the carrying of pregnancy to term at the government's behest. Whew! God damn. So woke I'm misspeaking. I never do that. Bro said brack. We are so brack. Sounds like a great judge. I mean, this judge is definitely making a bold claim. I fully agree with it. You know? The violinist argument is a pretty difficult one to argue against. It's a pretty... I mean, the main issue is that conservatives are, like, really stupid and dishonest, so they can't or won't engage with it. His rating for striking down was passed in 2019 when the Roe was still in effect. Oh, so wait, so hold on, Annie. He's striking down the law for procedural reasons, claiming it was unconstitutional when it was passed, but then he's affirming it on ideological grounds. Interesting. Basically? Okay. Now, I misread this paragraph then. That's on me. Still very... I mean, that's still, you know... The main argument I hear against the violinist argument is, oh, well, you chose to put yourself in a position where you get pregnant. I didn't choose the violinist. That's not... Then that's a person who doesn't engage with the argument. In the violinist argument, you caused the car accident. That's a lot of text, nuts. Me when I choose to be a woman. Okay, the violinist argument is this. Okay, you are driving, you get into a car accident. The car accident could either be not your fault, equally your fault and the other person's fault, or entirely your fault. The important part that's not true in the original argument, you're kidnapped. Oh, I've heard it as the car accident version. Oh, you're right. No, I've heard the kidnapped version too. I think the car accident version is better, personally, because I think it gets rid of that opening. You know what I mean? Why does it necessitate them being a violinist? It doesn't. Shut up. Anyway, you're out in the sticks, okay? And after the car accident, you come to, and you're alone in a room with the violinist. You're both in beds, separate beds, and there are tubes hooking you guys up. And a doctor enters the room, and the doctor says, yeah, sorry, due to a lack of resources present here, the person in the car that you hit was a violinist, a famous violinist, a very talented individual. And the only way we could keep them alive was by hooking your blood up to them. You know, it's going to be a while before help can arrive, but until then, like, your body is necessary to keep their body alive. Now, the moral question here is, like, morally speaking, does the doctor, or let's say like the cops along with the doctor, does the state have the right to force you to have your body used to sustain the life of the violinist? And the answer in our law and in common argument is absolutely not. You might be legally on the hook for the car accident, but the state cannot force you. The state can't punish you for opting out of that. If you said, no, I don't want to be hooked up to this person, the state can't charge you and say you're murdering them by taking the tubes out, even if you were the one who caused the car accident. If you hit them, if you were at fault for the car accident, maybe you can be found liable for that, but you absolutely cannot be found liable for not having your body interred to, sustain the life of the violinist. The car accident isn't completely needed. The only reason I like the car accident edition is because if you're kidnapped, the response that some people can make is, well, you didn't choose to be put in that situation. Whereas if you're pregnant, you did choose to be put in that situation. Now, that's obviously not true. People get raped, right? But for me, the car accident thing like kind of solves that problem, because even if you cause the car accident, even if you're at fault, we would still never say, oh yeah, you will be responsible for murdering them if you detach yourself. What if they bite the bullet and say you should be liable? Then their beliefs are incoherent. If that was the case, they think that you should, anytime your actions ever consequentially lead to they're essentially making the ultimate utilitarian hyperbolic argument, right? They're making the anytime anyone's life could be sacrificed to save 2 lives or something, then that would be worthwhile or whatever. No one actually believes this. Part of me wants to participate in the argument. Wouldn't your charges be worse if the accident caused a death? Yeah, but that would still be the charge of the initial car accident. And that's because a car accident is a thing that you did wrong to begin with. So you either have to bite the bullet that sex to begin with is morally wrong, or you would have to argue that a person should be allowed by, or forced by the state to have their body be used if it saves another person's body against their will. Essentially a kind of kidnapping of bodily resources, which is what the state forcing you to carry a child to term is. The God's honest truth. Nobody actually thinks a fetus is a life. Nobody does. You can talk to as many crazy Christian types as you want. You can talk to them. First of all, we must acknowledge the fact that abortion recipes are in both the New and Old Testament. Abortion is like the bitter water. The idea that this is stemming from a religious place, no, it's not. Abortion has been varyingly legal, illegal, permitted, not permitted. But whether or not it's legal and permitted in any era of society almost always has more to do with how much society controls women than it does any religious interpretation of the text. Also, you put them in a building where you've got a baby screaming in a crib and a petri dish with a fertilized egg cell in it, and the building's on fire. They wouldn't go for the damn, or 2 eggs in the petri dish. They wouldn't go for the 2 eggs in the petri dish. And it's 20 vials. It's stupid. They don't actually believe it. No one actually believes that shit. It's always about controlling women. It's better to say 30 eggs. You can say any number of eggs you want. They just don't believe it. We're arguing like an unfalsifiable, unempirical. We're talking about like the morality of consciousness here. No one thinks these eggs have consciousness, you know? There's no, like, no one defends these concepts successfully. That's the reason why crazy anti-choice advocates are always like faking how developed fetuses are, you know? Like, they say life begins at conception, and then they show like pictures of, you know, this is what a fetus looks like at 6 weeks, but it's actually like what they look like at 8 months or something. They always lie about that because they know they have to rely on arguments of moral intuition rather than standing by their insane first principle, which is the whole like at conception thing, you know?